How are you? Go on and wave when you come on in. Let me know if you can hear me fine. And I do want to put up some conversation pieces here. I'm going to say hello here on Facebook. So we could go ahead and sign on in here. There was an alarming statistic that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about today very quickly. I want to give you some conversation toolkits to have with your family in regards to protecting them from sexual assault, as well as sexual abuse or just rape. And really, when we think about young children, it's also really comes down to sexual molestation. So before we get in the way of all of that and all the education that we're going to do tonight very quickly to start this conversation, I do want to take a moment and just some housekeeping rules. So once again, when I'm looking here, it's because I want to talk to my Facebook folks, not to ignore when I'm looking up here when I'm talking to Instagram. Welcome all of you, and I'm going to do my best to go ahead and look both ways to engage everyone. When you come on in, go ahead and wave to me. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Hi, Edwidge. Good to see you. Glad you joined in. Vic for real, 954. Glad you could come on in. Go ahead and wave. Okay, so let's get right into our topic and into our discussion. My name is Dr. Sabine Elisee. I'm a board-certified family medicine physician. I am the CEO and co-founder of Cornerstone Medical Group. I provide simple, concrete understanding to what's going on in your body so that you could do two things. One, identify how it's affecting your overall well-being, and two, identify how it's affecting your daily productivity. And all of us want to be a little bit more productive. So today's discussion, we are speaking about sexual assault and the conversation toolkit that I want to give you, my conversation toolkit that I actually use for my own children, and a conversation toolkit that I use in office for patients as well too. This is something that is very important, so we really do have to speak about this, and we have to keep on speaking about it as much as possible. So there's some alarming statistics that you'll see. One of the alarming statistics that just in April of this year, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, identified that more than one in three women will experience sexual assault at some point in their lives. And more than 1 in 4 men, 1 in 4 men will experience some type of sexual violence in their life. So we're thinking about molestation, we're thinking about date rape, we're talking about also too if there's actual forced sexual assault, any one of those things. So of course, more clearly, I have young children, so I want to start by just speaking about how to have this conversation with your children and how early to start this conversation. One of the most recent statistics mentioned that by the age of 8, can someone go put that number in the comment line? 8 years old, 8 years old. By the age of 8 years old, children will be introduced to pornography for the very first time. By the age of 8 years old, children will be introduced to pornography by the age of 8. So that could come in the form of someone else in the classroom with him, someone that's the same age but has an older sibling, or just what we see now too, the reality of having access to the entire world right in your pocket. So there's that alarming number there. So when you have that number in mind at the age of 8, you also want to start think of when do you want to start having this conversation with your children? Start now. And the way that you start now is you start as early as 4, you start as early as 5. I give that number because you could start having a conversation very clearly with your children. One of the best ways to start for the younger age groups is you identify their private parts. And you don't give it little names that a lot of people will give, right? Everyone has in different cultures, we call our private parts different names. So you want to be able to say very clearly, if you have a little boy, this is your penis. No one looks at your penis, no one touches your penis. If you have a little girl, you want to say very clearly, this is your vagina. No one looks at your vagina, no one touches your vagina. When's the best time to do that? You could do that as young as that age, as soon as while you're giving them a shower. That's one of the things I tell my parents when they're in office. While giving them a shower, you go ahead and start speaking about that to them. The other time that you want to speak about it is that we want to make this conversation as simple and as common as when we talk about the sun or the weather. So when you're in the car and you're driving, you start talking about these things, your private parts, who should be touching them, who shouldn't be touching them. When I have a child that I'm examining, one of the things that I do to start this conversation, because it's not just the physician who should be having this conversation with your children, but it's very important parents, as well as grandparents, as well as aunts and uncles, to have this conversation. Even individuals who are overseeing a teen group, individuals who are overseeing a youth group. I'm a bit passionate about this because that statistic is alarming. Once again, we said more than 1 in 3 women, more than 1 in 4 men will have some type of will be sexual victims, will be some sort of sexual assault at some point in their lifetime. So you really want to start having this conversation more. So let's talk about something that you could do for those of you who have young children when you're having this conversation and when you pick them up from school. The number one thing that you want to do, those of you who have grade school children, you never want to pick up your child and say, how was your day, right? So those of you who have children and have found that to be so, when you pick them up and you say, how was their day? They'll say, fine, right? How many of you does that happen to? When you pick up your children or when you're speaking with your niece, your nephew, your grandchildren, you ask them, how was your day? And they say, fine. If that has happened to you, I want you to hit yes or hit a Y in the comment line. So you never want to ask the question, how was your day? The question you want to ask your children when you pick them up is, what was the best thing about your day? What was the worst thing about your day? And you want to give them your undivided attention. You have to give your children your undivided attention. So that may mean truly you put something down, you get off of the phone, get off of something, whatever it is, so that they know that they have your undivided attention, so that you could first ask them, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of the day? As soon as you ask that question, then that's going to start engaging them, and they will start getting used to the idea in knowing that I'm not going to be able to get away with a simple fine when I speak to this person, when I'm speaking to my mom or my dad or my aunt or uncle. So that's one thing. Young children, that's grade school, elementary school, you ask a very clear question. What was the best thing about your day? What was the worst thing about your day? Now, I know this isn't directly speaking about, as of yet, that conversation toolkits to get to where we are, but this is the baseline you want to establish with your children so that they will know it's a safe place for them to speak with you. The other thing that you want to do, no matter what they tell you in that day, you got to have a poker face, right? So you're never surprised or you're never shocked by what they say, but you're fully engaged, right? So they could say some craziness to you. They may use curse words, they may do all of that, but you're never shocked. You just completely have a poker face and really, wow, all of that engages them more, and it's allowing your children to realize that this is a safe place. So it's very important to do that. I'm sorry, I have to plug in my computer right now. It says here that the battery's about to be low. So give me a second. This happens, right? This is what happens when we're live. So give me a second. I don't want us to lose connection. I'm glad that it wasn't too far, but I don't want us to lose connection because this is a very important topic that we're talking about. So number one, of course, we mentioned that you're asking, how's your day if you have young children? The other question that you are going to do, well, the other thing that you're going to make sure you have a poker face, right? So no matter what they say to you, you don't really show this look of, I can't believe that, I'm shocked, because what your children are doing early on, is they're gauging whether or not they could come speak to you about anything. And the earlier you build that with them, the best it could be. You have to engage that with them very early on, all right? One of the things that I do in office when I'm doing that full physical exam on children, and I want you to do this as well too. If your physician doesn't do this, if your pediatrician doesn't do this, I want you to go ahead and be empowered by this, and you do it yourself, okay? I want, when they're going to examine your child, this is what I do. When we get to the point where I'm gonna be looking at their genitalia, I tell my pediatric patients very clearly, I'm going to be looking at your private part right now. If it's a young girl, I tell her very clearly, I'm going to be looking at your vagina. This is your private part. If it's a young boy, I'm going to be looking at your penis right now. This is your private part. Because mommy and daddy are in the room and they have given me permission. And more importantly, because I am a doctor, I am looking at to make sure that you're growing well and then you're not sick. But you are never to let anyone else look at your private part, your penis or your vagina, right? Depending on if whatever the sex is. And I tell them very clearly, if something like that happens, you immediately tell your mommy and daddy. And before I even go and examine this child, I go and I ask the parent, right? Because they're usually sitting to my right or my left. And I say, is it okay if I look at, and I say the child's name, their private part, because I'm a doctor and because I'm doing a full physical health exam on them. And I wait for the permission. After that parent says yes or no, I proceed. In that same moment, I ask the child too, has anyone ever looked at your private part before? Has anyone ever touched your private part before? So if your physician isn't doing that now, I encourage you to engage them and mention that to them. Because again, you want to have this conversation as much as possible until it becomes a conversation like the weather or like the sun. So that's one of the biggest things. Have the conversation consistently and constantly. Name the body parts correctly, and then let them know that they shouldn't be looking at anyone else's private parts and no one should be looking at theirs. And you name the private part like we said directly. The other thing that will happen as well too that we see also, which is unfortunate, is that a lot of times there are child on child acts. So if there's one child who's been abused sexually, they will then abuse another child in school. And that's one of the hardest ones, because as you're speaking and as you're speaking to your children, you'll realize that there may be someone in the class who's playing a little bit inappropriately. And that's why, again, it goes back to that question of what was the best thing about your day? What was the worst thing about your day? And then the next question, as you begin to really start speaking about this more, because they know that this question is coming, it will be, did anyone look at your private part today? Did anyone want to look at did everyone tell you to look at their private part? So that's one of the biggest things for our younger children. The conversation needs to become so common that if your child doesn't get upset when you ask them again, then you're not having the conversation enough. My son, he started a new aftercare program, and of course, on the day that he was going, I said to him, you know, no one looks at your private part. And he immediately said, and I know. No one looks at mine and I don't look at theirs. I know, mommy. So good. I want that to happen because he knows I'm going to ask the question, and he knows that I need him to answer that question, because this allows me, again, to really get at the nitty-gritty of what's going on. So that's truly what it is for the younger age. For the older age children, and again, this is true for high school, this is also true for middle school, but I do want to talk about that transition step of when we go to high school and we leave high school and go into college. And those of you who have older nieces or nephews who are leaving home and actually going to the college campuses, this is the conversation you want to have too, because date rape happens. Date rape happens. Date rape happens. And a lot of times people are embarrassed. A lot of times people feel as though it's their fault. So what we want to do is we want to debunk those myths, and we want to give our children the tools that they need, our teens, our young adults, the tools that they need. So one of the first things that's important to do, those of you who are going off to school, those of my younger crowd who are there and getting ready to go out to the campus, number one rule is you always want to go in a group. If you're going to a party, you go with a group. If you are going on a date, this may be a bit excessive, but you just never know. You don't know who you're going out with. Just because she's cute or just because he's cute and he wears Timberland boots, that was the big thing for me back in the day. If you're wearing Timberland boots, it doesn't mean that they're safe. It doesn't mean that they're safe. So you always want to let people know where you're going and who you're going with and what time they should expect you. So that way they'll know if you're not in at a certain time, they'll know something is off. Date rape is real. Date rape is real. What happens to young girls and young boys when they go off on campus? It's assault. And because they were on a date, they feel as though they're responsible because they allowed this person in. So sometimes we mention the importance of doing group dates. You don't really want to, and I know that it may seem foreign, it may seem old school, it may seem like something people don't really do or shouldn't do. It almost sounds ridiculous, but your safety is what matters most. Until you are completely sure, until you really, really know that this is safe, and I mean hardcore, and that sometimes people ask, how do you know? Until you're really at that point, you don't want to just go out by yourself. You want to go out with a group of people. You want to make sure that there's some boundary places in line, because these things happen. We talk about these statistics. We said 1 in 3 women, more than 1 in 3 women, more than 1 in 4 men, at some point in their lives, they will have suffered sexual assault or sexual violence. And we want to do our part by not only protecting ourselves, but we want to do our part by protecting our family and protecting our friends. So these are the things that we have to empower the people around us with. We have to empower them with these tools. We have to let them know that we're going to be talking about this. I'm going to be talking to this about you, and you should be talking about it regularly. And those of you who have teenagers or young adults that are off at campus and they're doing their thing, don't hesitate to call them. Don't hesitate to call them and speak to them. So who's the guy? Who's the girl? This is what engages them. And ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Ask the question. Did anyone touch anything that they weren't supposed to? Did you allow them to touch it? Did you not want them to touch it? All of those things are the questions that we want to engage. I think we may have to do this topic in a 2-part series. There's so much more I want to give you. There's so many more toolkits. But one of the best things, again, that you could do is have the conversation. I don't care how old you are, because some people, you know, we know that a lot of people in their 40s, even a lot of people in their late 30s, they're going on dates and they're getting date raped. And they feel embarrassed by speaking about this. But if we don't ask the questions, if we don't start talking about it now, we don't want anyone to feel embarrassed about that. All right? So I want you guys to go ahead, and if you have some comments, something that you want to add to this discussion that you have found to be beneficial, I want you to go ahead and put it in right now. In the meantime, I do want to say hi to Edwidge, Esther, Jean-Claude. I'm glad you could sign on. She says, hello, Dr. Savine. Hi. I want to say hi to you as well. Hi, Joy. Good seeing you. Senitasi. Look at all my Tuesday Transformers. Serious about transforming their health. I want to say hi again. Edwidge said, I'm so proud of you. Thank you, I'm proud. Thank you. Trying to do our thing. I want to say hi to Diane. Okay, Senitasi said, child could feel ashamed of the sexual development. Yes, this is very true. So this is, again, part of the reasons to start speaking about them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how, and I think my mom did a phenomenal job in when she spoke to us, or spoke to me actually, about this development and this change. And even when she spoke about sex, right? So I'm a daughter of a pastor. So my mom is also the first lady, right? So mom literally had the Bible, and mom also had her medical books because she's a registered RN, right? So she would have her Bible and, of course, speak about the importance of saving yourself for marriage. And then also she would have her medical books to discuss the true development that is natural. We call this in medicine anticipatory guidelines. And that's one of the best things that you could do for your children. Let them know, like you're saying, Senitasi, your body's going to be changing. This could be happening. You speak about children, young boys who have wet dreams at this age. When you talk about it to them, before they talk about it to you, they jump in like, oh, you know about that? You're so smart. So that's one of the best things that you could do. You want to get rid of that shame. When we speak about sex, when we speak about sexual development, you say it very clearly. You don't add these different words to it. It's important to speak about it just as it is. And that's one of the first ways, Senny, that you could start talking to them about that, or even letting other people know about that. Really speaking about that. Years ago at the church that I go to, we did a project about Great to Wait, and in that we actually spoke about some of that sexual development that occurs. And for some people, they don't like when that conversation is coming mainly from the schools. Some people don't like that. They don't feel comfortable with that conversation. They're not sure how. So one of the best things you can do as parents, as grandparents, as abuelas or as abuelas, whatever it is to get some of these resources in your hands to start having these conversations. So someone else said, hi, what are some of your tips that you could provide to families that have nonverbal children and adults? So Joy, what you want to do is pay attention, nonverbal children and adults. Okay, what you want to do is pay attention that when you are showering them, if they kind of pull away. So if a child, so one thing that happened actually recently with the child that I was examining, every time I saw that patient would be fully engaged. This little girl would be fully engaged in every time I would examine her. But I noticed one of the last times I examined her, she pulled away. And that's not common for her. So that's one of the things that you wanna pay attention to. If that when you are getting to their private part areas, they're pulling away. The other way, Joy, for adults, let's see, for families that have nonverbal children and adults, is just, that's one of the best ways. It's actually a little bit harder for adults because we're speaking about a group of adults that that we don't know always what's going on with them. So besides from having that supervision in place, again too, even though they're nonverbal, they may still do that same pull away. But Joy, you'll see the difference, and I want you to discuss this more with your physician as well too, so they could kind of pinpoint the patterns of that adult, the patterns of that child as well too. Ruth's joined us. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Barry. Good seeing you. Empowered people around them. Senitasi said group date. Yes. Someone said, what are your thoughts about school teaching kids age-appropriate sex ed? You know, that's a conversation truly for each parent. I know what I would prefer for my own family and for my boys when we have that. But that is a discussion that truly you should have and decide with your family how you want that to be done. Either way though, Diane, it's very important that the first time they hear about it shouldn't be from the school. The same way that the first time a child's hearing about sex education shouldn't be from me as their physician. Our parents need to do that. And these are the tools I want to give you tonight so that you could start having that conversation more regularly. We're going to go here on Instagram now. I want to say hi to Rodney25. Good seeing you. I want to say hi to Jazz. Hi, Jasmine. Good seeing you. Queen Diddy, Tanya Deli. Someone said age 8. Yep, age 8 is the first time a child will be introduced to pornography by the age of 8. That occurs. And that's one of the other things too. If a child, one of the ways that you'll see molesters will begin to work is they'll start showing children pictures, inappropriate pictures of genital parts. That's the way that it kind of seeps in. So that goes back to that conversation and asking them, what did you look at today? Particularly because so many people have handheld devices, whether it's their iPad, their phone, and even at younger ages, they'll start showing people pictures like just from there. And that's one of those telltale signs that, hey, something may have happened with this child, or this adult is clearly doing something inappropriately. Someone said, wow, that is awesome. Truly teaching children how to protect their bodies. Yes, this is good. Hi, Lunar Films joins. I want to say hi to you, Emma408. Thank you for joining. Look at all these Tuesday Transformers, transforming their health, serious about it. Elisee, Remy Boy, good seeing you. I'm trying to read this on the side, guys. Work with me here. I don't know what this name is. I'm sorry. Tweena, 344. I gotta get this figured out. Don't worry, it's coming. And then we have Julness, 6 who joins us. We have great people coming on. I see Dew Pebbles, Angela? I'm not sure, sorry guys. Okay, either way, I hope that you found this to be beneficial to you. If you think this information is gonna help you or someone else, sharing is caring. this is one of those topics that we really need to keep talking about, not just because you did everything that you're supposed to do and you got your school list this last school season, these past 2 weeks, but it's a conversation that we constantly need to have with every single age. Don't just think it's the girls. Don't just think it's the boys. Boys get affected as well too. Remember, we said that statistic was 1 in 4. 1 in 4 men at some point in their lives have experienced sexual violence. And this is the April 2019 CDC report. You want to have this conversation more and more. And those of you who are still dating or on the dating scene, yes, do everything you can to protect yourself, and always remember no is no. So if you have drawn the line, you don't want to go any further, then you have every right to say no. All right. So once again, if you found this to be beneficial to you, I want you to go ahead and share. Don't forget to follow me at Dr. Sabine Elisee. That's DrSabineElisee, so you don't miss out on all the great things that's happening. I want to say hi to Rudy Darden. Good seeing you, friends. Doing great things. And I also want to make sure that you guys remember too, it's not too late to join this Tuesday Transformer group. Those of us who are here transforming our health, educating ourselves so that we can be more empowered when we're having our discussions with our physicians, and so that we can know what's going on in your body. So once again, I'm Dr. Sabine Elisee. Good seeing you guys. Have a good night. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that once again, if you find this is going to be beneficial to you or someone else, go ahead and share it. You guys have a good night. Bye.